All right, welcome to VMware Explore 2024 Day 2. And man, John, the general session just finished. What'd you think?
It was great. And, one thing with these keynotes at every tech conference I go to, I try to figure out where we are on the hype cycle and which buzzword they're trying to, get the count up on.
Yeah.
And, I think, AI is definitely still there this year. It's carrying over from last year. But also, there's some classics that are still there. There's cloud, there's automation, there's disaster recovery. And I like that there's a steady trend of still, talking about these more, basic contracts. It's fun seeing what survives, Are we talking about, crypto or something else this year? No, that's fallen out. But there's still some OGs that are making the cut.
Absolutely. And we are going to be talking about disaster recovery on this episode. We're talking Site Recovery Manager. We were just talking about the fact this is how I cut my teeth. Early days was taking care of DR for another company. And it's been a long journey since then. And I'm so glad to talk SRM with anyone. And so we are joined today from a company called SS&C, Joe Weiner and Cary Tompkins. Gentlemen, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having us. We appreciate it.
Yeah. So SRM, tell me a little bit about SS&C and what the requirements were for SRM, and then I'd love to hear this automation story that you guys about.
Sure. So we are a global company. We have 27,000 employees. We have our own homegrown private cloud solution, and we were tasked with coming up with DR as a service for our clients and potentially for a public cloud offering as well for other financial companies who are interested in it.
Oh, okay. And so obviously Site Recovery Manager, for those I'm sure most are aware that our disaster recovery solution has lots of great features like failover, failback, testing, so many great things built into the program. But I heard that for your organization, there was a need to actually take some of that and automate it and provide sort of DR as a service for some of your customers, for some of your internal customers?
Correct. It was to take the functionality built in within SRM and vSphere replication and automate that process.
Okay.
Take what an operations resource would do and allow that to be done through automation. So we have enrollment into the products as an API. We have unenrollment as well as an API offering. And then we have your different failover scenarios, like your test failover, which is in an isolated bubble, your test failover cleanup, and then an actual failover situation where you truly fail over and switch over to networking, stuff along those lines.
I like this part about being able to expose out to the internal tenants that the testing procedures, because I feel like with a lot of traditional enterprises using SRM, or I guess sometimes the new name, I think VMware Live Recovery, we call it now in some cases, but it's a lot of that testing was done to where the IT, the infrastructure team would be the ones initiating that. Then they'd have to get on the phone, wake up some app owner, get them to go verify. And it was this awkward coordination between two people who might not talk all that often. And being able to push that back to those groups and say, look, you can do this testing on your own. You can initiate it on your own time, your own schedule. Please leave me alone.
Yeah.
100%.
Exactly. And that was our goal too. By creating the automation, it freed up our admins to do admin roles instead of sitting there,
Help
automating
desk.
the disaster recovery and then waiting for the team to test and then failing it back.
And every team has a different time where they're available, or maybe the app's not built out yet. And you do have to test those in groups and get that stuff together. So being able to push that out. From the automation, what's the interface here? So you're just not letting your developers you're not giving them admin to vCenter. It's not like they're using the SRM interface within the vCenter. How are you exposing that to them?
For us, it was more about, it's not just passing through an API call, but it's all the different components on the back end. How do you pick the right cluster? How do you pick the right data store?
Balancing incoming load, sorting out,
Exactly.
okay, there's all these new VMs being created, this new app being created, finding a cluster that meets that
certain set of
compliance.
requirements, because we have tags and stuff that are in there that we have to check to make sure it's going on the right cluster, networking, etc. So it's not just simply pass through of APIs, but there's a lot of logic built into it to get the right cluster, make sure it's not overutilized, that we're not
You don't have to go call a storage admin and figure out which LUN to place it on.
Exactly.
Or which NFS mount.
We had to automate that entire process, which took a lot of time. Had to build our own algorithm to pick the right cluster, so there was a lot into it.
Yeah, I'm curious to see what some of the challenges were building that, and maybe you can share how you overcame those so we can all learn from it.
Well, and to your point too, it also helps us keep our environment a little more safe security-wise, because we don't have to open up the SRM or the vSphere to our clients. They're not logging into it. They are, it's.
And you don't have to teach them how to use it. It's like,
Yes.
here's your API, have fun.
Click that button.
Click
Just
that
click the
button and go.
on
Yeah,
and go.
Yeah.
Expose it to
100%.
your cloud management portal, whatever that is, and do that. So
Yeah.
So what were some of the challenges from building that?
I would say some of the challenges were, as we walked through it, we had to, every step of the way, think, okay, on this screen in the UI, what are they going to see? What are their options going to be? What are the logical choices that they're going to have?
what choices
to make?
you're going to make for them versus what you're going to expose to them. And
Exactly. There's a lot of that too. You may have several choices when setting up your plan, but you may not want all of those choices available. You kind of hone it down.
you don't want them picking port groups, but maybe you have or restrict which port groups they have access to or things like that.
Right.
Correct. We would do that based on the choices they make. We would make automation that would pick more of the harder settings, so to speak.
And if you think about it, before, every single one of those choices was potentially a conversation or a meeting with a different security or networking or storage or compute group or compliance group. The more you can do that, that's just a lot of meetings that evaporate, by
Yes.
helping make those decisions for them.
Yeah.
As with the actual failovers, right? We don't have to have resources sitting on the phone with different business units to do failover testing. They can click their own buttons. They can fail over and fail back. They can do their own cleanups.
And when you think about when large-scale disasters happen, not something isolated to an application, but something physical happens to a data center, and you've got a large-scale initiations of these at a fleet-wide, you think about all that hand-holding you did in testing if you were doing it the old manual way, not the cool automated way y'all are doing. You don't have time for that.
Right.
People are potentially trying to keep their house from getting flooded or whatever, natural disaster, is encroaching upon you. You might not have, the most senior person on the team available. You might have the most junior person clicking that button. And so making sure that's well tested, well automated, that's a pretty good story.
Yeah, and the time to recovery is significantly reduced because you're not sitting there thinking about how do I do this, how do I do that. I just click
It's
a
not
button.
the time of the boot, it's the Gantt chart of people hitting approval or figuring out which button to push.
Exactly. So, and some other challenges, the SRM APIs are new, right?
Yep.
So we had some challenges with that as well. We identified features that we actually went to engineering with, and they identified as bugs that they had to fix in future releases. So there was some time spent waiting for new releases and hot fixes to come out. But we think that it made the product better as a whole. So,
But it was always a good interaction. We would say, hey, we've encountered this issue, and they were great working with us. And
They own it, ship it. So
Right.
yeah.
So are you sharing any of the automation? I'm sure this is something that other folks would love to try, but has there been any consideration in writing a blog about this or possibly sharing some of this information? It seems like a common thing that a lot of folks would probably want to do.
It's an interesting idea. It's not something, frankly, we've thought about yet, but I would definitely be open to writing a blog about that. And also, as we're looking to work on a public cloud opportunity here, we may sell it as a service for others to take advantage of.
that's cool. Expose it out
with
to your financial customers.
Exactly.
You use those existing cloud.
Well, then in
SaaS
that
solutions.
case, I take back my previous comment. Don't share it. Sell
Hold
it.
on to it.
Just
Sell it.
I don't know. I've seen many a person who's like, here's a VMUG with this cool thing I automated. People are like, that's awesome. Can I pay you to do it?
Right. Absolutely. Yeah.
That still
That's
comes
another.
up, I
That's another
promise.
point.
Even if you put it on
yeah.
GitHub.
Yeah.
For sure.
Very cool. Well, gentlemen, last question for you before I let you go. You're here at VMware Explore. You guys are, I'm sure, attending a lot of sessions and having customer meetings with TAMs and stuff. What's been your takeaway this week at VMware Explore?
I just like to see that the products are coming together.
Yeah.
I think that seems to be the message that's being sent out from above. And it's nice to see because a lot of times it felt like the products were siloed. And now that they're having the teams work together and creating common interfaces, I think it's only going to make the product better.
Yeah, I like that.
Joe made a great point, and that's what I've seen all throughout is the cohesion that's happening and the ease of use and or deploying that it's going to be coming forward, especially with VCF 9.
Very good, very good. Well, gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us here on Virtually Speaking, and enjoy the rest of your week.
Great, appreciate it. Thank you very much for having us.